the integral from 1 to 2 square root of x cubed minus 1 dx. Okay? For future reference, I'm going to call this f of x right there. Okay, so I tell you to use n equals 10 on that one. I didn't type it in, but I told you in class, so make sure you got A is n equals 10, B is n equals 8. I'll make sure and tell you how many n's to use on there. Okay, so first thing you do in every case is come up with your delta x. Delta x is b minus a over n. In our case, a and b are 2 and 1. Or so 1 and 2. 2 minus 1 over 10. So 1/10 or 0.1. And then I get a list of x's. I start at a, which is 1, and then I keep adding this over and over until I get to the second one. So 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, 1.8, 1.9, and 2.0. Okay? Now what I'm going to do, depending on the trapezoid rule, the midpoint rule, or the Simpsons rule, is I'm going to plug those into f and apply a certain formula. Oops, let's try that again. That didn't work. Sorry, I'm trying to be sneaky and do something. Tricky. Oh, looky there. All right, there it is. I just don't want to write it twice. There's one. And then do it again. Oh, what happened there? I'm doing it 3 times because I'm going to do the midpoint rule, I'm going to do the trapezoid rule, I'm going to do the Simpsons rule. And I'll just show you what the formulas look like. Okay? So, this is, the midpoint rule, I've got a little bit more work to do. I'm going to start with the trapezoid rule. Trapezoid rule says take delta x out front divided by 2. And then inside, take f of the first one plus 2f of the second one plus 2f of the third one plus 2f of this 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 plus 2f of that plus f of that. And then multiply that all by delta x over 2. So your formula is a delta x over 2 out front, and then your coefficients are 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, and ends with 1. Now when I say f of, I mean I'm going to do a lot of calculator work now. I'm going to plug in 1 into this. I'm going to plug in 1.1 into this. I'm going to plug in 1.2 into this formula right here. Okay? So, some tedious work at this point, but it's just calculator work. Okay? The Simpsons rule, delta x over 3 now, it's 1, 4, 2. It starts with 4. 1, 4, 2, 4, 2, 4, 2, 4, 2, and it ends with a 4 and then a 1. So it's f of this plus 4f of this plus 2f of this plus 4f of that plus 2f of that plus 4 times f of this plus 2 times f of that, is 4 times f of this, plus 2 times f of that, plus 4 times f of this, which is plus f of that. And again, delta x is 0.1, so you're going to put a 0.1 over 3 out front. And then plug in 1.1, multiply it by 4. But when I say plug it in, I mean plug it into this. I'll do one of these in a second with my calculator just so you can see it, but I won't do all three. Midpoint rule. Midpoint rule means you got to find the midpoints of each one of these first. So this is 1.05. This is 1.15, 1.25. I find those by adding the 2 and dividing by 2, adding the adjacent endpoints. 1.35, 1.45, 1.55, 1.65, 1.75, 1.85, and 1.95. So those are all my midpoints for these. And then there's just, you multiply that by delta x. Oops. Delta x out front times f at this one plus, and the coefficients are just ones for those. F of this one plus 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 f of this one. So it's typing into a calculator now. I mean, what I would do is I would write these numbers underneath here, what I get when I plug those in. So, like I would put like on this one, I put 0.1 over 2 out here, and then I do f of 1. F of 1 turns out to be 0 in this case. Then I do 1.1 cubed minus 1. So open up my calculator. Switch it to scientific mode here. 1.1 cubed minus 1 square rooted times 2 gives me 1.150, say 7 plus, and then I do it again. 1.2 cubed minus 1, and then square root it, and then I multiply that times 2, and I get 1.7065 plus.
What we on the test, like say we like our steps and stuff is right, but our calculation, like the numbers and stuff wrong.
It won't be as, I should be able to see it. If you show me you've got delta x, and I see on there that you've written down the formula, like you've got the right coefficients, then that's most of the problem is correct. Like I'd probably count off a fourth of the value of that problem for calculation errors. So you get 3/4 of it correct. Do you get the idea? I mean, do I need to finish that? But it's just now plugging into my calculator. I would add all that up, multiply it by 0.1, divide by 2, and I get a number, and it should match the number that's on the answer key. And you do the same thing for Simpson midpoint. These can be long, so I obviously can't put really long problems on a 50-minute test. So what you're going to expect to see on Friday are shortened versions of these types of problems. I might give you an n equals 4, right? And I might only give you Simpson's rule, or I might only give you trapezoid rule. I probably don't have time, so more than likely it won't be all three of them. But I won't tell you which one it's going to be.
You said how do you use your calculator?
So on this one, on your calculator, you can type these things in. So you got this. you forgot to do the square root was all you're missing. So 2, because there's a square root in the function,
Oh, I see.
I would do, where is your, yeah, second, this guy. And then what you had right there is fine, 1.1 cubed minus, cubed minus 1. Right. Oh, what did I do? But you get the idea, right? Forget where your backspace key is on the I'll tell you I-84. I know the back arrow, but how I delete it going backwards.